Okay, can I have your attention, please? My name is Margaret Stoldorf. I am the chair of the Republican Party in the 3rd Congressional District, and I'm also the co-chair of the county party here. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Montgomery County. We're here because Governor Mike Huckabee has chosen to spend a little bit of time with us. I don't think he needs a big introduction, but I will say that he is from Arkansas, and so are the Clintons, but that's where the similarities end. The governor has his wife with him today. Let's give him a good Red Oak welcome.
Thank you very much for coming today, Margaret. Thank you for the introduction. And you worried me there for just a moment. She said, you know, I don't think he needs a lot of introduction. Look, early in my political life, I was speaking over in East Arkansas, which is like 99.9% Democrat. The rest of the state was only 98.99% Democrat. But I went over there, and the person who had invited me to speak to a Rotary Club over at this particular community called Helena, he didn't show up, which that's not a good sign when the guy who invites you to speak doesn't come. So they were trying to get someone to do the introduction that day, and finally they gave the job to this guy, and he got up and his introduction went like this. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told our speaker today is a man who needs no introduction." And I sure am glad, because I've never heard of this guy. I am so glad to see this kind of turnout here in the middle of the afternoon. 8 years ago, we kind of created a strategy of going to pizza ranches all over Iowa. And it was a great way that we had to be able to find a meeting place to get with folks. I think now many, many other candidates have realized that that's a pretty smart idea. I just want to make sure you knew who first came up with the brilliant strategy, what we call the pizza ranch strategy. A lot of national reporters wrote about it, and a lot of candidates have copied it. We were just a little bit ago in the hometown of Glenn Miller, which I thought was pretty cool. And when we were over in Clarinda before the event, Janet and I went over and stood in front of the birthplace and had our picture made. And I asked this question of the crowd: how many presidential candidates do you think actually has Glenn Miller music on his iPhone? This one does. 5 tunes from Glenn Miller. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one. But that was a big thrill for me, because as a musician, what an impact on the music world, but also what an impact in terms of proving what unselfish sacrifice is all about. Amen. He easily could have just focused and been very selfish in maintaining his musical career, but to sign up to be in the armed forces and to ultimately lose his life serving our country is just a great testament to a man who loved his country and who left a great legacy. I hope that what he left us, both militarily and musically, is not forgotten by future generations. And it was so nice to see the museum there and the birthplace. So I want to say, again, thank you for coming out. Get as comfortable as you can. We'll be out of here 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight, so. Why are you laughing? I'm serious. No, I promise you we're not going to keep you that long. I'm going to speak for just a few minutes, then I'm going to open it up and let you ask any question you want, unless it's hard, and then I'll suddenly have to disappear. So how's that? You know, 8 years ago, when I came to Iowa, we would have been thrilled if we'd had this many people at one table when we first started coming. And in fact, sometimes we would get to an event and we'd have more of our staff show up than would come to the event. We're thrilled about being back in Iowa. Winning the caucuses 8 years ago was a great thrill and put us on the way to what we thought would be a White House victory. We didn't quite get there. Came in second to McCain in the primary. Iowa was good to me. First chapter in my book called Do the Right Thing is titled I Love Iowa, because I remember the night of the caucuses we won, shocked a lot of people, really put us forward in the process. And I just want to say something to you folks here in Iowa. If the rest of America had been as smart as you guys were, we would not be going through the mess we've been going through for the past 6.5 years. So, I also want to acknowledge how delighted we are to be in the hometown of Senator Joni Ernst. What a delightful person, a great senator. We were just with her a couple of weeks ago over in Boone at the Roast and Ride, which was a terrific event. And the rain held off until the very end, and I think as all the speakers got finished, then it poured down rain. But it was a great, great time. What a delight. And I always wanted to come to her hometown to find out exactly where was it that she castrated those pigs. I don't know where.
That's north of Stanton.
Where was it?
It's north of Stanton.
North of
5
Stanton.
miles away.
Yeah. I'm going to stay as far away from that as I possibly can. Well, let me begin by saying, as Margaret mentioned, I do come from the same state as the Clintons, the same hometown as Bill Clinton. We were both born in Hope, Arkansas. He was born 9 years earlier and moved away when he was like 6 years old. So when he says he's from Hope, Arkansas, he was born there, but he didn't really grow up there. I really did, as did my wife, Janet. Both of us are from there, graduated from high school there. We were married after our first year of college.
I was 12.
Yeah. And as of last month, we've been married for 41 years. So obviously something worked, and that's been a wonderful experience, being able to stay married that long. People have asked my wife before, did she ever think about divorcing me? She said no, she did think about murdering me on several occasions. We are thrilled to be able to share this time with you, and what we're looking to do is win the caucuses in February. Let me tell you this, I don't expect anybody to say, oh, we voted for you before, that automatically means we're going to do it again. We know we have to earn your vote. We have to convince you that I not only can win the nomination and not only win the election, but you also need to know, can the person you elect lead this country? Because it's not enough just to win an election if you can't lead. For 6.5 years, we had someone who could win elections, but he didn't know how to lead.
That's right.
Never had run anything. Never held an executive position. I personally believe that being a governor is the best preparation to be president, because when you're a governor, you actually run a microcosm of the federal government. Every agency that exists at the federal level, you have it at the state level. But I think in my case, it's a little bit of preparation that is also helpful. I'm one of the few people alive who can tell you that when people talk about how can Republicans beat Hillary Clinton, well, you're looking at one of the only people, the only person in the Republican primary for president who has actually run against the Clinton political machine and did it repeatedly, won, and lived to tell about it. Which is worth something, let me tell you. Every race I was ever in Arkansas, both Bill and Hillary Clinton came back and campaigned for my opponent. Which I need to tell you, that's a little intimidating to run for lieutenant governor, for example, and have the president and the first lady of the United States coming in and campaigning for your opponent. So I know what it's like to face what is a very formidable and challenging political machine that they have put together. I also know what it's like to govern in a hostile environment, because when I was elected lieutenant governor almost a quarter of a century ago, I was the first Republican in about 25 years to be elected to anything, only the fourth in 150 years to be elected to a state office. I was the only one in the Capitol at the time. And they were so excited to see me, so glad to have a person of the other party, that my door at the state capitol to the office of the lieutenant governor was nailed shut from the inside, literally nailed. It stayed that way for my first 59 days as the elected lieutenant governor of the state. When I finally got in, all the office furniture was removed and the budget was zeroed out. It was not exactly the warmest, most wonderful welcome that one could experience. I was reelected, however, largest margin that a Republican had ever received in the history of the state. And after 3 years as lieutenant governor, I was down my end of the Capitol minding my own business when the governor got convicted of Whitewater-related felonies and had to resign. That put me in the office of governor. I was reelected twice after that in a state that just didn't elect Republicans. And people say sometimes, how did you win? Because, I mean, Republicans typically would get 37, 38% of the vote, and that would be the ceiling. Not only how did I win, but how did I keep doing it? And then once elected, inheriting a legislature that was 89 Democrats to 11 Republicans in the House and 31 Democrats to 4 Republicans in the Senate. How did I govern so as to actually accomplish things and get things done, including nearly 100 tax cuts, rebuilding the road system, revamping the education system? How did that happen? Well, quite frankly, it's the same way I think we can win this White House, and the same way that we can govern effectively. I'm convinced that a lot of us who are what I call political practitioners, those of us who are in the middle of the process, we tend to see everything horizontally. For us, it's all left or right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. We tend to see things on the horizontal level. And I have to admit, if you ask me where am I on the horizontal level, I'm very much to the right, unapologetic. Most of you probably are too, or else you wouldn't be showing up at a pizza ranch in the middle afternoon on a hot June day. But a lot of America, they don't really think horizontally. Their big issue is not, are you the most conservative, you the most liberal, are you left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. They don't vote that way, they don't think that way. They think and vote vertically. And here's what they want to know. If we elect you, are you going to take us up, or will you take us down? Will things get better, or will they get worse? And I think more than ever, a lot of Americans are really wanting to know, can someone lead? And can someone govern to get this country back on track? To get it back on track economically, to get it back on track militarily so that we can be a strong nation again, to get our respect back. I've challenged some of my Democrat friends, and by the way, I've got quite a few. And I've asked some of them, including some staunch supporters of Barack Obama, I said, can you name any country on the planet with whom we have a better relationship today than we did when he took office? And amazingly, they can't name one. You know why? Because there isn't one. We've squandered the relationship with our friends, and we have now caused our enemies to have utter disregard and contempt for us. When your friends don't trust you and your enemies don't respect you, you've squandered the strength of your country. And I fear that that's where we are. I think there's some things that have to happen in this country to move us from a different place where we are now. And it's going to be more than simply somebody coming in and doing the work of the donor class. And by the way, some of you, I would bet in this room, get sometimes frustrated. We get Republicans elected, and they don't seem to do a whole lot different than sometimes the Democrats. Look, I understand there's challenges to be faced in governing. I understand that, believe me. But when I watch the Republicans in Washington wanting to give more power to Barack Obama on Obama trade, I have to scratch my head and say, here is a man who for 6.5 years has overreached in executive power. Why would we trust him to negotiate an international trade deal? Be honest with you, I wouldn't trust him to negotiate the sale of a second-hand Subaru or the purchase of a couch off of Craigslist, much less an international agreement that we're going to have to live with for many, many years down the road. So why is it that that would happen? I tell you, in large measure, is because our political system has been captured by the donor class who fund elections and expect the politicians to dance the dance once they've been given the money. And one thing that we can do, and Iowa is a wonderful place to start this, is for the people to speak. 8 years ago, I had a dime to the dollar of most of my opponents in the race. Mitt Romney alone in this state outspent me 10-1, literally $10.1 or $2 million he spent in Iowa. We spent just barely $1 million. And we won the largest number of votes in the history of the Iowa caucuses as a Republican. I'm convinced that Iowa can speak loudly and clearly to the rest of America that what you really hope for and need and want in the nominee for president and in a president is someone who works for you. Not just for the folks who are in that Washington to Wall Street corridor of power that often just doesn't care that 5 million Americans lost manufacturing jobs since the year 2000, or that 60,000 manufacturing plants have closed since the year 2000. We can do better than that, folks. We must do better. Most of you have said to me today as I came in that you watched my television show on the Fox News channel. I thank you for that. It's been a lot of fun. I miss it. And people ask me, why in the world would you leave that to run for president again? I have 5 very good reasons. And those 5 reasons are my 5 grandchildren, all of whom are under the age of 4. And the most recent was born a week ago, Monday of this week. Little George, the most recent, into the field. And 5 grandkids is the reason. Because once there was a time when in this country we always believed that our kids and our grandkids would live a better life than us. This is the first time in American history where people believe that they're living better than their kids and grandkids will. I cannot tell you how much that breaks my heart. That is not how it's supposed to be in America. We are supposed to live in such a way that we hand the next generation a better country, not one that's $18 trillion in debt, not one that has become weak and that is now being picked on by the bully Islamic jihadists from around the globe who feel like that they can do whatever they wish without any type of penalty being assessed against them. This is why this election, and we always say, this is the most important election in our lifetime. And I guess with each one they have been. But I will tell you, I think this one really is the most important one of our lifetime. What I need to do today is somehow convince you that your help in the caucuses can put us on the way, not just to winning Iowa, but to winning the White House and getting our country back on track. You know, there's a saying that we often say down south, goes something like this. If you see a turtle sitting on a fence post, there's one thing you can be sure of. The turtle didn't get there by himself. Some of you are going to think about that image for just a moment. I'll give you another one. If you see someone who becomes president, he did not get there all by himself. There were people who helped him. Early in my political life, about 25 years ago when I first ran for office, there were people who would say, "Man, I am behind you." And I thought, that's great. Boy, I'm glad to hear that. And then after a while, I figured out what they meant by that. They were behind me, way behind me. So I came to realize that I don't want people to be behind me. I want them to be with me. With me means we win, and we get things done. And that's why I'm here today. And I hope you'll be with me all the way through the caucus and beyond. And we'll get this country back on track again. Let me take some questions, because I know you probably have some. I'll start right here in the front.